Hi, and welcome back to Victorian Studio. I'm Maureen, and I wanted to share with you a project that I just finished. It's a shadowbox photo frame that I wanted to create for a very special photo. Yep, that's a Tim Holtz and Mario autograph that I received in the mail recently. I knew when I got this that I needed to create a very special frame for this very special gift. So I began by going to the Goodwill store and finding a shadow box that I could turn into this three-dimensional frame. I actually got two of them, so this is the other one. I picked this one out because I thought the photo would be a good size in there. It turned out the mat was a little bit small, so I ended up making my own mat. But this faux wood finish on the other one was buckling, so I ended up tearing that off and stripping it down to the raw wood underneath so I could start nice and clean. I began by getting out Tim's crowded attic paper stash. Now, this I've used many times before. I just love it, and I thought it would make a good base for the edge of the photo frame. So I cut it out and glued it around the edges, both the front and the back, and inside the frame. Then I created the photo mat using chipboard and following some instructions that Tim had for making a rusted effect on the chipboard. So I got out his first book. It's called A Compendium of Curiosities, and on page 45 he describes a rusted grunge style or technique. Instead of using grunge board, I wanted something a little stiffer, so I got out some medium weight chipboard, cut it to size, used some embossing distress ink on it, then sprinkled on some of the embossing powder. This is vintage photo. And after heat setting it and rubbing some off, I used distress ink, this is the walnut stain, to age it and darken it even more. And it's a great effect. I just love the way it looks. And I thought it was a perfect base for starting my project. So that's a great book, lots of great ideas in it. I love going back to it and the second volume, and I can hardly wait to get the third volume that's just out. So after I got that done, then it was time to decide what to add. So the first thing I did was a little cabinet I made out of matchboxes. I got 3 matchboxes and cut them down so that they would fit the frame. I didn't want them to stick out too far, so basically cut them in half, then glued them all together, wrapped them with white cardstock paper that I then colored using Tim's distress marker. This is the vintage photo, so I could create a wood grain effect on the outside of the cabinet and also on each drawer. Next, I got out some of Tim's ring fasteners. These are great. They're brads with little pull rings on them, and I attached one to each drawer, and that way they actually do pull out. And I lined them with a little tiny newspaper advertisement from, again, the crowded attic paper stash. So all those drawers actually pull in and out. I just love making these little cabinets from matchboxes. I love the way they turn out, and I can put maybe some little mementos in each of the drawers if I want to. Now, once I had the little cabinet in place and glued in, I added a little book. That's a 1-inch version of his compendium, some mini paper clips, and a jar from his corked vial set. This is the smallest one. I put embossing powder into the little tiny one, distressed the cork, and added a little moth, again from his crowded attic paper stash, on top of that to make a little diorama. Now, because I wanted to show how much Tim has influenced me and inspired me as an artist, I wanted to add a few of my own artist tools. A little pencil, one of my used paintbrushes, and my vintage folding wooden ruler. It fit around the one side and top of the frame just perfectly. Just love the look of that folded around there. The next item I wanted to show you was this in the background. It's a journaling ticket from Tim's Ideology set. It's 24 tickets in this booklet, and they're perforated, so you can just tear off whichever one you want to use, and they can be distressed, inked, colored, stamped. They come in a variety of different styles. And I used some of Tim's stamps. The set I chose was his Clear Stamps Random Thoughts by Stampers Anonymous. I used this Creativity and the Brushes image. Creativity, I masked off the bottom of that stamp because I only wanted the one word over top of the brushes image. Next, I added a game spinner to the top of the journaling ticket. I just attached it using a brad so that it's able to still move around. So that whole journaling ticket is also attached using one of Tim's memo pins in behind the little cabinet. I also added one of his drawer pulls and stamped using another stamp set, Imagination. Again, I masked off the rest of that stamp. I just wanted the imagination, and stamped that on some cardstock, distressed it, and slid that into the drawer pull. I attached the drawer pull using E6000 glue since I wasn't able to actually put those brads through the frame itself. And that just makes everything stick just perfectly. I used it on the wings, on most of the metal that I attached onto the frame. I also used glossy accents on anything that's either cardstock or chipboard. It's a perfect glue to use in that regard. Speaking of chipboard, I've added quite a few items that I die cut out of chipboard. These gears, I did different layers. If you can see, I've layered 3 different levels of gears on the inside edge of the frame. I just used some acrylic blocks to support them while they dried. I used my Cuttlebug and Tim's dies, of course. The first one being these gadget gears, and I cut them to size. And then I also used this on the edge die, and it's called Steampunk. I also decorated some of those die cut gears with actual mini and sprocket gears from his sets as well. Now the chipboard ones I colored using his distress stain. I used the antiqued bronze and also the walnut stain distress stains, and also some distress ink. This is also the walnut to make them even more aged and grungy looking. Now, the smaller gears that I've attached around the frame, I've used many times before. I've probably purchased half a dozen or so over the years of these sprocket and mini gears. I just love them. They can be used individually, or they could be paired up, doubled up, tripled up. You can just put a brad through them and they just make great embellishments. Since I love steampunk, I've added them wherever I could on this frame. At the top, I've got quite a few of them layered, and I've also hung the bird cage from one that also has one of his like drawer pull, the ring fasteners too, and they actually mesh together so they look like they could actually work when turned. So this bird cage is again Tim's actual bird cage. It's a metal piece that actually opens up. The back folds out, and I inserted one of his metal charms. It's a bird. I just clipped off the top ring on that bird and used some E6000 glue and put the bird inside the bird cage so that it could hang freely. Oh, and I almost forgot to show you, I also used some of these ideology corners. They're metal embellishments that I just glued on to each edge to finish it off really nicely. They come in either a coppery tone, brass, or a silvery, and they make a really nice embellishment. Speaking of metal embellishments, I also used some of Tim's locket keys in two places on this frame. At the top, I've used one with a key, and here's the set, what I have left of it anyway. I've used this for a few projects. At the top, I used the actual keyhole and key. I used E6000 glue so that that key would stick out. And then I used a second one actually on top of the pediment die. That's another Alterations Bigs die that I cut out using my Cuttlebug and chipboard. I also used the Distress stain to color that in. That's the brushed pewter Distress stain. I also used the Black Soot Distress ink to make it darker and match the keyhole color a lot better. I also used Tim's craft pick. This is a great tool. It's nice and sturdy, really sharp, and it's perfect for punching holes through thick items like chipboard. And I used that through the pediment die and through the base of my frame to attach it all using the enclosed little tiny brads. They look like little screws. Next, I added a curio knob from the top. It looked like a chandelier light to me. And also these wings with the enameled plaquette, the 14 for 2014. I attached all of those together again using the E6000 glue. These wings came from the Adornments Regal set. It's a set of 10, and you get 4 large wings and 4 small ones. I used the 2 large ones. There's also 2 crowns in that set. And after attaching them all together, I also used the E6000 to actually adhere it to the frame. I also fussy cut 4 moths from Tim's Crowded Attic paper stash as well and put them around the frame. I also used a rub-on using his remnant rubs set. There's 2 sheets of these, and I cut out original and put it on the frame edge. I also cut out time after time and attached that to the watch, and I'll show that to you a little bit later. I distressed the edge of the frame using sandpaper and also some distress ink with the walnut stain. Next, I wanted to use a chain to hang maybe some keys or tags from. So I got out this brass mini pulley that my dad gave me a while back. I attached it to the back of the photo mat using one more of these ring fasteners. So just like the bird cage, it was perfect for hanging this pulley from. And then I ran this chain down through it and attach different charms. And one of these collage keys, again, one of Tim's sets, comes with a key, a metal key, an image, and an epoxy cover that you press on over top. So to that chain I also added a couple of charms from my stash I've had for a while, and also a couple of labels. Now this label set is called tag labels, metal tags that you again insert a sticker and then an epoxy cover over top. I glued down the chain so it wouldn't flop around too much and wove it in and out of the film strip that I attached using a couple of brads. Now this is the film strip ribbon by Ideology. You just cut it to size, and like I say, I just used a couple of brads to attach it to the frame and made it all wavy and then curling over the top of the frame. I also took the length of chain on the other side and wove it and adhered it to the gears, weaving it in and out. Now this embellishment in the back is one of Ideology's playing cards. They're a small pack of, they look like regular playing cards on one side, but then on the other there's letters or numbers. And these are great. You can use them to create words or dates. They're a great embellishment for scrapbook pages or cards. I just chose the letter T for Tim, and I distressed the card using some ink and also grunged up the side a little bit. Next, I use some of these alpha parts. They're ransom letters by Ideology that are adhesive, and I just clipped off an I and an M and attached them onto the card. You can distress these, you can paint them, and I just wanted to make the rest of his name on the playing card. Next, because Tim is so well known for tags, I wanted to make little mini tags for the frame as well. So I used another die of his from the Alterations Tiny Tabs and Tags die set, and I cut out the smallest one 3 times on white cardstock. Then I used 3 distress inks to color them in. I used weathered wood and Victorian velvet, and also faded jeans. I used the same technique I would use on larger tags. I used my inks on my craft sheet, then sprayed them with water using my mini mister, and that created a nice mottled effect on each little one. I also distressed the edges using some vintage photo distress ink. Then I found some small images from the Random Thoughts stamp set, the bee, the Admit One ticket, part of the ruler, and the numbers from this eye chart. And I stamped each little tag with these small images. Then I also added a little brad onto one and some baker's twine to tie them together, and then skewered them all with a memo pin that's sticking right into the edge of the photo frame. Next, I wanted to show you this pocket watch that I added. This is one of Tim's actual pocket watches. It is glass and metal, and I wanted it removable so that you could see these gears move around. I added a vintage watch face in the back and the chain with another gear on it. Now the pocket watch opens up from the back, so I inserted the gears and the watch face in there. And I attached some more gears, sprocket gears, and mini gears to the front using some E6000 glue. First I attached them all together, then I attached them onto the frame. So I made this little pocket so the watch could sit inside there so that it would sit without falling out and also be removable. I also used this clock key for one side. What's great about these is they actually have a screw in the bottom of them. So I used my craft pick again and poked a few holes through my mat, and I was able then from the back to insert the bottom screw of this clock key through it and then twist the front of it right on the frame. So that's nice having that watch that's removable, and it will also sit in there when it's hanging on the wall. The last item I added to the photo mat was one of Tim's ornate plates. It's an ideology set of 6 book plates. There's 2 each of a coppery, brassy, or silvery toned metal frames that are attached using a couple of brads. So before I put it onto the frame, I cut out a vintage ad for a fountain pen, again from his Crowded Attic paper stash. So I think that's it. Believe it or not, there's about 100 different items in this frame. I really wanted to show Tim that I do so love his products, and I'm truly grateful for him sending me both his and Mario's autographs on this great photo. It's something that I can hang in my studio and get inspired even more. So thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed seeing what I did in my latest project. And I hope you'll return again. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.